can I talk about the sentencing just
sure.
for a bit?
Yes, you can.
A lot of interest in what kind of a sentence he could get, and you're hearing things all across the board. I'm not an expert. As best I understand, though, from what I've seen people saying online, first of all, the prosecution is asking for 4 to 5 years. So unless the judge I know the judge denied bail, but unless the judge just wants to go out on a limb and throw the book at Sean Combs, he's certainly not going to go beyond what the prosecution has asked for. Now, the prosecution's max that they've asked for is 5 years. He's already served 10 months. By the time sentencing happens in October, it will be 13, 14 months. And so that's already like a year down, right? And so he's looking at as a maximum 4 years. I believe also if he's good in prison, he can get like 20% of that, 15 to 20% knocked off, right? And so also apparently as a first-time offender, he's eligible to not serve any time, and that wouldn't be apparently unusual. And so it could be anything from 0 to 4 years. And I'm thinking it'll probably be something in the middle, FYI. So he's not going to serve a lot of time.
I mean, that's my thought too. And yeah, as a first-time offender, you're eligible for no time, is what I understand too. And also, starting usually it's 85% of your time, and for federal time, and there's no parole in the federal system. But there are some ways around that. I think as first-time offender, you might be eligible for like halfway house, although those are fucking terrible. I've heard. I've not been in one, thankfully, but I've heard they're not cool. Sometimes the jail is actually better than halfway house. We had a J6 guy on here who ended up getting pardoned, but he said the halfway house was worse than jail, actually. But there are some things you might be eligible for as a first-time offender. But the judge today, I do have some concerns because of some of the language that the judge used. And we talked about the letter that Cassie's attorney sent to the court, which I was kind of rolling my eyes at, to be honest. But it was
grandstanding or what have you. Yep.
That's my view too. But he used some terms that he was kind of prone to violence, and that his defense team had admitted to that, and he wasn't going to change his ruling on bail that he had already made, I guess, several times before the trial started. And there were a couple other points. I have to go through and look at them, but that was the justification that he used. Now, that may not affect sentencing. There are also some options. I think it's called a Rule 9 or a writ of habeas corpus, even, that they could file, go above him to try to get out. I don't know if I would do that if I was them, because that might upset the judge. Yeah, I don't know if I would do that, to be honest. It'd be nice to get out until sentencing, but you're going to have to serve some more time anyway, probably. So I don't know if I would do that if I was Diddy.
The time that he's serving, I know he wants to go home, and I totally understand. I'd want a break before I go to prison. But the time that he's going to serve, he's going to be in a lower security situation. It's not going to be that bad, and he's getting credit for the time that he's in prison against whatever he's sentenced eventually. Yeah.
So what do you think about what the judge said today? Is that a bad sign or a good sign? And then also, what, I guess, just him not getting bail in general. What do you think of that decision?
I don't think it's as bad of a sign as as Diddy supporters, Sean Combs supporters might fear, for a couple of reasons. First of all, the judge did take pains to say in his decision that this was not representative and was of how he was going to rule for sentencing, and was a separate issue. And I don't think that he would go to those lengths if that were not the case, to say that. Also, apparently, Diddy's lawyer, Sean Combs' lawyers, kind of dropped the ball on their bail application. And I don't know if this was overconfidence or what happens. I mean, even high-priced lawyers make many mistakes, right? Yeah. But apparently they asked for things that were really a little bit out there, like the right to travel and stuff like that. And they didn't put together a really solid bail proposal package that would promise to be like stringent in security matters. He could have promised to hire his own security, that he wouldn't be able to leave the premises of his home, ankle monitoring and all that. And as I understand it, the defense put forward kind of a lame, half-assed application when they should have put forth a much more stringent, serious application. So it could be that the judge was also kind of frustrated, like, okay, well, if you're not going to make the effort on this, you must not really care about it enough, right? And then the other thing I think is going on here is, just like this jury, The judge, unfortunately, is going to get a lot of shit. It's already happening. It's already happening with the jury, but the judge, his sentence, whatever it is, it's not going to be enough to satisfy a lot of Diddy haters and conspiracy theorists. And there are going to be a lot of people out there who are going to say, oh, the judge is bought off, the judge is corrupt or whatever, when sentencing comes down, if it's not what they want. And so there might be a part of him too that thinks, okay, I'm going to show some strength here, and then later maybe it'll put me in good stead with the public. I don't know.
Yeah, and stringent. I was just about to use that word myself, and then you said it. Master of the English language here, Colonel Kurtz. Now,
Right.
the bail proposal, and I think you're right about the judge too, because I was thinking that he might be considering that. Well, if I give this guy a bail right now, this is already a lot of people are kind of up in arms about this. This is going to look a little too sideways for my own personal profile. So yeah, I consider that too. But yeah, the bail proposal, he was allowed to travel to, I think, California, Florida, New York, and there might have been another place.
He asked for shit like that. No.
Yeah, well, his proposal, they narrowed it down. They were trying to get him out, I don't know, I think maybe 3 times or maybe even more before the trial. And
if I'm stuck in Brooklyn's prison, it's like the most notorious jail in the country. I would be saying, dude, just get me to my home. I will stay in one room for the next 3 months.
Well, one of his bail proposals, one of the final ones was, we'll have security that we hire. He'll be at his house. He'll be on, I think, ankle monitoring too. Okay, no, not today, but that was was the old one before the trial started, because they tried to get him out on bail multiple times before the trial. Maybe they should have just recycled that last one. So I don't know. We're second guessing a brilliant defense team overall. But yeah, I consider that too. I was like, okay, guys, like, I don't know, this might be a little too much. And it's not just regular bail. He's already been convicted on these 2 charges, even though I don't believe in those charges. They're still the law. What do you think overall of the reaction by the public? Although he has some supporters too, and they've come out. I've noticed they've come out of the woodwork a lot more today under some of these replies. Very trendy to do so today. They weren't out before as quite as stridently there, but they are.
I think the verdict has given people some cover who were being silent to come out and now assert what they feel. And I'm happy for that. Better late than never. Yeah. And look, there's still like a long way to go with all of this. And so, good for anyone who's speaking out, because look, I've been very disappointed. I am very disappointed in the reaction, the public reaction to this, at least on Twitter. And we have to remember, Twitter is not representative of most people. Yes. Research has shown that that Twitter skews way to the left, particularly often a very strong, quote unquote, woke left perspective. I know we're in our own like libertarian conservative echo chambers or whatever, but that's the case. So I try to remind myself that what I see online is not representative of most people, but it really seems like the anti-Diddy perspective is, and not just anti-Diddy, but like anti this verdict perspective is really, really strong online. And of course, the conspiracy theorists, it's as bad as like the 9/11 truthers. You might be one of those, and no offense if you are. But like the conspiracy theories are just out of control, and people just assuming, oh, he must have paid off the jury, and James Comey's daughter doesn't want him to go down or whatever. But I mean, I'm sick of it, y'all. Maybe it's just that they didn't have enough evidence for the charges. Can I just say too? I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but it's insane that they had 5 white women going against a black defendant. I mean, the optics of that are just so bad. And honestly, who wants to see 5 women in their face all the time? Like, that's not good for a jury. I'm sorry, but it's true.
I can hardly stand one. No, I'm just saying, except you, Colonel Kurtz.
I didn't hear that. I did not hear that.
Except Colonel Kurtz here now, and the 19-year-old from last night. Now, let me.
I didn't hear that.
So, what do you think about? Now, this is looking into the future. He was found not guilty on the RICO charges. Now, I think you know this, but I'll repeat it for the audience. If he'd have been found guilty of the RICO charges, they would have proceeded to confiscate his assets and properties and stuff like that, which includes assets, whatever. And he has a lot of assets, and he's still making money while this is all going on. You can still listen to all of his songs on Spotify and YouTube. He makes money off all that. He owns the whole Bad Boy, Master Records. Yeah. And he's Yeah, and I believe he owns Biggie's masters as well. Like he has and other people, I think even outside of the rap industry might own some other master recordings. And so all that stuff matters. When he gets out, which he will eventually, what do you think there's any chance of rehabilitation in the public's eye?
Someone texted me earlier and they're like, "Oh, do you think he'll be able to rebuild his life?" And I'm like, "No, he's in a complete fucking hole right now. The only thing that this verdict has done for him is it's taken hell off the table. Hell is off the table, but he still is in a hole. He's facing 100 lawsuits. And most of them are from that sleazebag disgraced lawyer, Tony Busby. And that he's a whole other story. But, and by the way, they're just obvious money grabs if you read them. It's all kinds of just crazy stuff. Oh, he and his son raped me wearing masks. And I mean, it's just is the latest one. It's just like, come on. And so I think that they're BS. I think that this is an unprecedented case of civil lawsuits just gone awry. But he's going to have to deal with them. And you know how tough one lawsuit of this nature is to deal with. Can you imagine having 100 lined up? So he's still in the shit, and he's going to be in the shit for a long time. Do I think one day people are going to sort of come around to reevaluating all this, or that one day he'll be clear of the lawsuits and he can just kind of move on with his life? Years from now, yes. But do I think he's ever going to be Mr. Puff Daddy, Diddy, hip hop king or whatever? No. I mean, I think that part of his life is over.
Well, I have experience on a much smaller scale and without a federal case, although some other cases, I will say that once you get scandalized, it's hard to claw out of that. It's not impossible, and the more time that goes by, and the more record you build, without scandal and stuff like that, you can come back to a certain level and maybe get back to where you were, but it's very difficult. Because there's no way to explain or excuse that. And you and I are as close as you're going to get to Diddy defenders, and yes, we can't and don't want to explain or defend that either, right? The most that I can say about that video is that people have the misconstrued idea that was him trying to kidnap her to do freak offs, when really what happened, apparently this came out in the trial, is that he was suspicious that she was cheating on him, which I think it turned out that she was, at least later. I don't know if that moment she was, but he was suspicious she was cheating, and then that got into something or whatever, which again, that in no way excuses it. I'm just saying that didn't help the government's case, because they couldn't prove that was connected to the freak offs. But anyway, my point is that video, it's disgusting, and you can say, oh, well, she was violent too sometimes, or it was toxic or whatever, but there's just I don't see him getting past that. So again, the most I can think he hopes for is that he finally gets clear of these lawsuits, and he can live on the residual funds of everything. I mean, he's always going to be a wealthy man, I think, and then he can just maybe go a different direction in life. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll have to take up the collection plate for him or anything like that. I think he'll be fine as far as that's concerned. But I know a guy like Diddy. I mean, I know from my own past, you want to get back to where you were. You want to okay, forget that stuff that was in the past. And I know he's even more driven to that, and he'll want that. So I don't know if it's possible. But what about the jury themselves? Are you eager to hear from the jury? What do you think their calculus was on all this?
Sure. I'd love to know what went on behind the scenes. We know they had that hiccup early on where the gay biologist PhD, who was a veterinarian as well, was accused of not being able to follow directions, and they wanted the judge to speak to him. I'm kind of curious what that is about. I don't think that a PhD can't follow directions. I think probably what happened is he got in there and he was like, we already know what we think about all of this. Why do we have to go through everything? You know what I'm saying? And but I'd sure like to know if there was anyone who was like a holdout on some stuff and had to be dragged along. And I'd also like to know if there was a Henry Fonda 12 Angry Men person in there who stood up for Sean Combs and actually pulled the jury more toward a lighter verdict. We'll see.
Yeah, I love that movie, by the way. So a classic, Sidney Lumet. Now, That makes me think of another Sidney Lumet movie, Network, Patty Chayefsky as well. Yes. Okay, I won't get into my cinema knowledge, but okay, I'm trying to think of more questions. Well, first off, who else do you know that was kind of right on all this stuff? If you've been following this day to day, which I know you have.
One of them, I just want to give a huge shout out to. They go by Lawyered Up on Twitter. And they don't have a big following, just a couple of thousand or so. They should have more of a following because they not only have been correct on this thing from the get, but also they gave the best trial commentary in the day to day. So if you were watching the Twitter feed with that journalist who was it was urban press or something, Inner City Press.
Yes.
Inner City Press was offering continuous transcripts being in court of the trial, right? And so this lawyered up person was doing continuous commentary and was having to face down so many Diddy haters who were misinterpreting a lot of what was going on in the trial, or were trying to sort of explain it away or whatever. And this lawyered up was going through and saying, no, this is what this means, and this is bad for the government, et cetera, et cetera. So great commentary. And one of the lone voices standing up for a different perspective on this. You know, I got shit from not shit, I shouldn't say this, but I was told by a number of lawyers on Twitter who have YouTube channels that this was a slam dunk case and that I was basically naive for believing that he might get off or get a hung jury. But this lawyered up was one of the few lawyers out there saying, no, he could very much get off. The government has not done a good job with this case. So that's one I'd say. Another one is Citizen Justice, who primarily covers the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively thing, but also has given. No, there weren't a lot of people there. Dr. Phil, strangely enough, was one of the few big voices out there saying, "Hold on, Diddy might get off here because of this jury might feel this way."
Well, you know, this was an easy one to run from, even if you had some of the same thoughts we did. A lot of people, if they're managing they're too concerned perhaps, or maybe they make more money than me. Maybe it's right. I don't know. But they're kind of hedging, and they're like, this is a PR disaster if I come out in support of Diddy. And it's not even necessarily supporting him personally, but some people are so, hung up on the video and stuff like that. They can say, well, even if I think a certain way, I'm not going to say that publicly, but it's easier to come out in favor of Baldoni, maybe even Depp, some of these other folks, than it is Diddy. And so... Oh,
I'm sorry, by the way, I messed up her name. It's Citizen Journalist, and she's C Journalist 24. Sorry about that, CJ. I'm not buying. Citizen Journalist, C Journalist 24. Everybody should follow her. Okay.
Sorry, I think I retweeted her yesterday because I think she responded to something that I said over on Twitter. But yeah, this was one where I think a lot of people kind of sat it out, unfortunately. But that's okay. I mean, I understand it, but still, I just thought... even, maybe you don't like Diddy. There's some people in my chat that don't like him, and that's fine. I grew up with Diddy. I feel like, right? I feel like I know the guy.
People like you and I have a different perspective too, because I listened to his music when I was in high school, and he was really cool, and people like cutting edge and great music and whatever. And that nightclub thing, that shooting, that started to change perception on him. And then I think people got tired of his political activism, the whole vote or die thing and all of that. So perceptions of him have changed, but I still appreciate his contributions to music and to hip hop. And I do think that his version of that Led Zeppelin song is better than the original itself. Oh, but I do. Speaking of Jimmy Page, how has he never been Me Too'd? That dude apparently had a 13-year-old lover that he kept like locked up in a hotel room so people wouldn't see it or what. I mean, it's like the old guys could get away with everything.
Dude, they were literally fucking teens and stuff back then, kind of openly. A lot of these old rock legends, and some of them wrote songs about it. What was that one song? I can't remember it now. It's from the 80s even, where they're talking about, fucking teens. I have This is like not 19-year-olds, to be clear.
I know.
Nothing wrong with a 19-year-old. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, we've talked about this before, I think. Like Steven Tyler had a 16-year-old lover, and he was afraid to travel from state to state with her because he didn't want to get popped like Diddy for things like that, right? And so he had her parents signed over custodianship to him so that he could be her custodian and then have sex with her and travel around with her. And the parent, and this is the thing too that people don't, but can I say one other thing here?
Sure.
This is the thing that also nobody's talking about. The parents of the victims in these situations, they are usually enablers of the highest order. This was something that R. Kelly pointed out, by the way, in his whole situation. Is he was like, these parents were selling their girls to me. Well, you see that even to a degree in the Diddy Cassie situation, because one of the interesting things that also came out in this trial is that Cassie's mother was made aware of the abuse and basically didn't tell her daughter to leave the guy. Apparently she was getting sort of bought off by Sean Combs and liked the presence and all that. So the same thing with O.J. Simpson. He paid off her family and bought like a Hertz car business for the dad and all of that of Nicole. So they were very reluctant to tell her to leave him. These parents are not good parents.
Well, that's a great point. And R. Kelly, he's got to be shaking his head tonight, I have to say.
I don't know anything about the R. Kelly situation. And so that was one of those where I always assumed that he deserved exactly what was coming to him. And maybe he did. I'm never going to have time to go back and look at that. And I know that I saw an interview with his ex-wife where she described being like hog-tied and beaten for hours and stuff, and like I'm like, so he probably deserves what he got.
Yeah,
but I understand.
Look, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. I'm just saying he's probably.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a video out there. There's another video of R. Kelly. It doesn't have to do with a hallway, but it has to do with some water sports. So that's not and a teenager too. So not good. But they did nail him on racketeering. He got convicted of racketeering. So. He's in a federal prison in Chicago, and it's I guess I'm not going to keep you all night, but I'm trying to think. I think I hit most of the questions ahead anyway. I'm sure you're going to do some type of recap on all this and follow it going into the sentencing too, which I'm going to do as well. But interview they want to hit on, and then what are your plans for kind of a recap of some of the stuff that happened, if you have those plans?
I'm going back right now to my Twitter and looking over it to see if there's anything that I've talked about that we missed here. I guess one thing is that I am so pleased now that at the precedent that I hope this sets for RICO cases, because the government, as we've talked about in recent years, it has gotten out of control with the RICO thing, out of control. And as we've said, I thought it was flawed and stupid from the start. So did you. But it was originally intended to take down true organized crime, mafia guys that they couldn't figure out how to get access to, right? Because the mafia guys had other guys doing the crimes for them, right? And that's where RICO came from, right? Is that it used to be very difficult for the government to bring down mafia bosses because the mafia bosses themselves never committed the crimes. They had others doing it for them. So the government could never get to the main guy, right? And so RICO enabled them to do that by attaching the main guy to a criminal enterprise, then they could do all these things together, right? Basically makes it easier for the government. So this thing has morphed over time, and it is being way overused by the government. I could mention various cases. Giuliani got hit with RICO charges. I don't remember what ended up happening to those. He got hit with RICO charges. And then, of course, the Nexium guy, Keith Raniere, I do not think, this is another unpopular opinion of mine, but I do believe that his sentence was unjust. He was that cult leader. He got a life sentence for leading a cult, basically. And
Diddy's lawyer was his lawyer too, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It was the same lawyer. No, it was. Yeah. So Agnifilo, the same guy, the same lawyer for Sean Combs. And that's why, by the way, Sean Combs hired him, is because even though he had lost that case, he still had experience with these sorts of cases. So long story short, I just want to say I really hope that this now knocks the wind out of government sails on bringing these types of cases.
Well, I don't think much of the RICO law in the first place, like you mentioned, but I mean, using it against Diddy is kind of ridiculous. Honestly, they're getting way too free. That's what always happens. And when they pass a law, they're like, yeah, we're just gonna use this to go after the mob, and nobody else has anything to worry about. Okay, whenever you hear some shit like that, no matter what, we're only gonna use it for this specific thing. Well, once the law is on the books, all of a sudden it can get used on a lot of different people. So there's something to be wary about whenever you hear that, because it's never just restricted to one set of criminal or one set of circumstances. It always gets broadened. You see it time and time again. There's a million different examples, and they do that, and people are like, yeah, go get the mob and get these bad guys. And then, later on, it's being used all over the place. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad to have you on today. I was mad at myself because I wasn't on air. I did think the verdict was going to come in today. Now, I was still on time, actually a little early, but yeah, I was like, oh, okay, it'll probably be in the afternoon. Nope, they were ready to go this morning. And it's funny, I did see Dan Abrams, who I don't really like, but he did say something that I was cognizant of myself. He's like, well, the jury came in yesterday, said they were hopelessly deadlocked. Well, guess what? And then all of a sudden today they had a verdict within an hour. Now, I thought it would take a little bit longer than that, but I did think they would have the verdict fairly quickly today because July 4th is coming up. And if they're close enough, somebody's going to get pushed to the brink, and everybody in that room's looking at you like, we want to get out of here and we don't want to be here. And so this happens a lot in jury trials, where all of a sudden magically they come to some sort of conclusion. So I wasn't surprised by that. But any final thoughts here? Promote your stuff too, but any final thoughts on the Diddy trial?
I mean, it's just it's hard for I know it's hard for a lot of people to understand why we're happy today. And I guess what I'd say to those people is that you open your minds to the fact that maybe there's more complexity to this and more writing on this than just the issue of whether or not Cassie was abused, right? And so I guess that's all I have to say. My handle is Colonel Kurtz 99 everywhere. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube is my main platform. That's where I have the most followers. So yeah.
Excellent interview. And I'll just say this at the end. Yes, keep that in mind. I know some people in my chat even disagree with me, which is fine. But it's not about Diddy the person, although I am sympathetic to Diddy, to be honest, but especially when everybody's coming after you, it's like, okay, maybe I'll talk shit about Diddy, but the feds are trying to put him away for life, right? Like, this is beyond trolling or
only the federal government can make this.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. People, and it's not just about Diddy. It's about federal overreach and overcharging. And you may think it couldn't be you, and it probably wouldn't be in this same way, but let the state come after you, especially the federal part of the state, and you'll be wishing somebody was defending you as well. 100%. Colonel Kurtz, live on the Kill Stream. Thank you.